Anyways, I wasn't the only one who was in Alberta. So was Justin Trudeau. And he did an interview with a left-wing radio host named Ryan Jesperson. Now, I should say he's no longer a radio host. He was sort of let go from his radio position. And now he's got an online show. And good for him. He's an independent citizen journalist who's got a bit of an audience. And I salute him for that, even though I disagree with most things he says. Good for him. I want to show you a clip that Justin Trudeau did when he was on this friendly radio show. We're actually going to break it in half because there's two chunks. Here's the first part. It's only 30 seconds long, but Trudeau says quite a lot in 30 seconds.
There is out there a deliberate undermining of mainstream media. There are the conspiracy theorists, there are the social media drivers who are trying to do everything they can to keep people in their little filter bubbles, to prevent people from actually agreeing on a common set of facts, the way, the CBC and CTV, when they were our only sources of news, used to project across the country at least a common understanding of things.
Some of what Trudeau says there is actually true. I think he's just putting the wrong spin on it. So he says that independent journalists, citizen journalists, are deliberately undermining the mainstream media. I don't know, maybe that's what you call healthy competition, the same way that Coke is deliberately undermining Pepsi, and the liberals are deliberately undermining the conservatives. It's called a clash of ideas. Or more to the point, a marketplace of ideas where people vote with their dollars or where they click. He says that we're breaking down the mainstream media, and I think it's because the mainstream media has failed to incorporate other voices in it. Trudeau is suggesting that this is as bad that people are abandoning those regime media. I think it's actually a good thing, because people who are shut out from the national conversation hosted by global CBC and CTV. For example, when was the last time you ever saw anyone who was a global warming skeptic on the regime media, or anyone who was pro-life, or anyone who's worried about transgenderism in women's sports, or anyone who's pro-firearms, or pro-Donald Trump, or pro-Canadian oil, or anti-unlimited immigration? Never is the short answer. In fact, some of the TV stations like the CBC have an official editorial policy against having people who are skeptics of global warming. They say, we don't debate flat earth. So the mainstream media has failed. You heard Trudeau say that phrase, the mainstream media. And I use that phrase sometimes too. I prefer to say the media party or the regime media. But really, why are we calling them mainstream anymore? And I just... For example, I went to the CBC's annual report. It's really easy to find if you go to Google and just type in CBC Annual Report 2023. And on page 18 and 19 and 20 there, I won't get deep into the details, but you can see year after year, their audience is falling. How's that possible? The population of Canada is growing. The budget for the CBC is enormous. They have such an enormous advantage. How is it possible that month after month and year after year, the number of people watching falls? Here, just for one example, here's a statistic you can see right there. The CBC says they have about 20 million visitors a month. There's 40 million Canadians. So if they have 20 million visitors a month, that means on average, every Canadian clicks on a CBC story once every 2 months. I mean, and it's declining. That's what's incredible here. I don't know if you can see that chart year after year. They're not mainstream anymore. If the average Canadian only clicks on a CBC story 6 times a year, which is what their own report is, that's not mainstream. That's fringe. He calls everybody else a conspiracy theorist. That's just an insult. A lot of the conspiracy theories have been proven correct, of course, whether it's about the extent that Trudeau would go for vaccine mandates, or even some of his bizarre theories like blaming Israel for a rocket attack on a hospital in Gaza that was done by Islamic Jihad. He says that the internet keeps people in their bubbles. I think it's actually the opposite of that. The internet has freed people from the bubbles of CBC, CTV, and Global. You're allowed to find your own bubble. I am, I guess, in a conservative bubble, but I'm still overwhelmed with media from the left. I think I probably have a more diverse group of news that I sample from than Trudeau does. But the one thing that got me the most from Trudeau's comments was his phrase, a common set of facts, like CBC, CTV, and Global used to project across the country. He's admitting it. He's saying that he misses the ability of those three regime media to control what we say and control what we believe is true. But we're not about a common set of facts. I mean, I think there's certain things that we no longer debate, like, the earth is round or the earth is flat. I think we all accept that the earth is round. But most other things we allow disputes and debates on. As Richard Feynman, the former Nobel Prize winner, once said, science is the belief of the fallibility of experts. Experts are wrong, and science is constantly trying to prove they're wrong and improve the theories of life. And we don't have common facts. We have debates over the facts. Our entire society is set up that way. A court case has a plaintiff and a defendant, or a prosecutor and a suspect. We're not all on the same side. We argue it out. Same thing in politics. We have the government, but we have the opposition, an official, institutional, permanent opposition, because we know the truth is not owned and monopolized by any one side. Science is absolutely about skepticism and challenging things. Who is Trudeau to demand that we have a common set of facts? Oh, let me guess. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. The common set of facts that we all have to have is the one he himself believes in. All right, I spent a lot of time talking about 30 seconds. Let's watch the end of that clip.
Any government that chooses to step up and say, well, this is the mainstream view, will, if we're not careful, actually compromise those organizations as being mouthpieces for a mainstream view that people on the fringes are exactly. So how do we actually shift that? I think one of the ways you do it is create opportunities for strong, clear voices like yours, like this show, to be a source of news where people are actually drawing on real conversations and evidence-based presentation and thoughtful exposition and investigation where necessary. Like there are massive changes that need to happen in our media landscape, and government can try and create conditions and incentives for it to happen. But ultimately, it does come down to Canadians saying, you know what, I don't want to accept the encrafication of news. And quite frankly, the number of followers you have, the number of great podcasts people are out there getting their news from, the way people are consuming their stories from around the world in more thoughtful ways, that is a good thing. But where it's lacking is that local content, is the stories about the closure of this street that's going to cause trouble in this neighborhood. As soon as you get to a certain size, as soon as you have audience across the country, you can't spend a lot of time on what's happening down at the end of Main Street in your community.
He said a lot of weird things there too. He said that any media that jumps on the government view will be called a government mouthpiece that's bought and paid for. But they're saying that because that's actually the factual truth of it. As you know, 99% of Canadian media do get grants and subsidies from the government. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's happening. Trudeau boasts about it. Most media companies don't like to talk about it because it's clearly compromising their independence. But when the media echoes and repeats what Trudeau says, and we say, oh, look, you're in the pocket of Trudeau, that's not a baseless allegation. It's because they are paid by Trudeau. And there's a reason why in newspapers and TV channels, an ad is marked as an ad. So you know that they're selling you something, not telling you something. What Trudeau has done is blurred the line between telling you and selling you, because he's actually buying the journalistic coverage himself. He says, though, and he can't help himself. He's just ideologically incoherent. He says that he wants the government to, quote, create opportunities for strong, clear voices. What? The government's going to create opportunities? And let me guess, I'm just going on a limb here. The strong, clear voices are journalists who like Justin Trudeau, just a guess. And then he says, oh, and what we really need is local coverage, like potholes and roads and stuff. Hang on, I thought you were worried about conspiracy theories on grand things. Justin Trudeau is a mishmash of ideas. All he knows is this. He hates people who don't like him. He loves people who do like him. And he believes that cash is the way to get him. I don't know. I'm not sure what a common set of facts is on a pothole, but I don't think you should put too much stock in anything Trudeau says.